Hey guys, I'm back out again today, and today I'm headed out to scout out a location for a camp that I want to set up. Just a low profile camp, but I want it to be a sturdier structure that I can leave set up full time. I don't want to leave a tent or anything out here. And so I'm headed out today. I'm not going to be able to start on any construction. I'm getting out here kind of late, but there's a few locations that I've seen before that I think would work well. And so I'm going to head down and kind of scout them out. And I've got a container inside my pack here full of supplies that I'm going to cache out there. So I'll show that. And then I'm also out here because we've gotten a bunch of rain and snow in the last few days. It's, now it's ice. And so I want to detail my crampons and trekking poles and kind of show how that works for kind of slick surface mobility out here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my crampons on. I've got my bongo gear, Becker patrol pack today. I'm not planning on doing any hunting or anything, so I can bring the smaller pack. So I've got the crampons right on top, and I got my gaiters. I'll be putting them on. This Becker patrol pack, I believe it's called the Becker Mark II, that Bongo is making. It's a remake of the classic Becker patrol pack from the 70s and 80s and 90s, I suppose, too. A few different companies have made them in the past, and the owner got a hold of Ethan Becker and got his permission basically to kind of update the design a little and start producing them again. And I think it's an awesome 3 to 4 day pack depending on your environment, and for coming out and doing stuff like this, it's an excellent pack. These crampons they're a universal crampon. You don't need a mountaineering boot or anything like that. And basically they just fit on over the boot, and then you have these pretty substantial metal spikes to help you bite into the cold frozen ground. Avoiding mobility injuries is should be of great importance if you want to come back into the backcountry and do stuff like this, because if you can't move, you're in deep crap. I don't carry these crampons all the time, but I do bring them, late spring, from pretty much, I should say from, late fall to late spring. They pretty much are going to be a consistent piece of gear. You can kind of see there. They're just strapped on around my normal boots. Because these do kind of two things for me. One, they help me avoid a mobility injury. I don't want to slip and get hurt. But they also open up other terrain for me that I might not normally go through because I'm worried about those slips. Having good traction, I feel a lot more confident going over steep, slick terrain, especially when I pair these up with a good set of trekking poles. This Becker Mark II, if you're familiar with like the medium Alice pack, it's similar in capacity to that, but I think it's a far superior design as far as the layout of the pockets and stuff. And then the trekking poles that I'm using are the Black Diamond Alpine Carbons. And these just help give me more stability. So now I have 4 points of contact with the ground as opposed to 2. All I'm doing right now is just sizing them up. You know, typically you want to get your trekking poles adjusted so that your forearm's kind of at a nice comfortable angle. And then when you're using these, you just put your hands through the wrist strap, and you don't really like hold on with a death grip. You just kind of let that strap do the work. You just hang your hand in it, and then you just pick up your arm and set it down when you need to. So real quick, just kind of give you an idea what I'm planning here. So I'm going to leave from this point. I'm going to head down along the side here. There's a trail. And then when I get down in the bottom there, I'm actually going to go, you see this hill in the center? I'm going to go around the left of that and then hook to the right on the other side. And there's a couple locations back there I kind of want to just check out. They're kind of, I guess, alternate locations for what I'm wanting to do with my shelter. But the primary is going to be, zoom in a little more, further way back in here. So I want to get to that first, make sure it's going to be suitable. I haven't quite decided on a design yet of the shelter because I have a few ideas, but until I actually get to the location, then I'll know for sure what I want to do. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. Hey guys, I just came down this little, 30-foot embankment. You can kind of see the slope here is pretty good 30 to 40 degree slope. It's muddy, it's got snow on it, and with my crampons and trekking poles, it was basically like walking down a dry set of stairs. I mean, no slippage whatsoever. You know, these things definitely turn terrain that even when it's dry would be somewhat difficult to climb. They turn it into something that's really pretty simple. You know, you're not going to walk straight up any vertical faces or anything like that. You know, and out here in this grassy, dirt, rocky soil, they bite really good. Now, if you're trying to crawl across pure rock, you know, I can't say how they would do on there. I just don't know. I've never done it. So, but in this type of terrain, they work quite well, you know, and this is pretty indicative of what winter can look like out here where I live. You know, we have snow, but it's not deep enough that you're going to want to utilize snowshoes, you know, and I've got a couple polk sleds that I can use. And I would imagine if I brought them out here, they would definitely slide across this grass and snowy mix, but I don't know how much benefit they would be, until the snow gets deeper. You know, once the snow's deep enough for snowshoes, that's where the polk really shines. You can carry a lot more weight on that. But anyways, I'm just going to keep moving out. I've got, maybe a mile to go to where I need to get to. Just following all these coyote tracks. The animals have been out here for thousands of years. They know where all the easy paths are by now. Okay guys, I made it in. I'm kind of on the back side of that hill that I said I wanted to hike around. So I'm at my first, like I said, I kind of wanted to check out a few other areas. You can kind of see where there's this, block the sun there maybe, but that cluster of trees up there, they kind of sit up on a shelf about halfway up this side of this hill. And I think it has a lot going for it, but what I don't, for the kind of shelter I'm looking at making, I want something with more trees close to it. That way I don't have to haul wood so far, because I don't want to use up all of the trees there to make the shelter. You know, I'd like to leave as much of that intact as I can. The kind of shelter that I'm envisioning, it's something that will be large enough for probably 3 people plus their gear. and be fairly well insulated against the cold. And eventually I wouldn't mind either bringing my titanium hot stove with, or buying a cheaper one that I could leave in there permanently, depending on how well it holds up. That'd probably be something for next winter though. You know, this little valley, this little draw that it's in, it does have quite a few resources here, but knowing what I know about the other location, I think I'm gonna head there. You know, down in this flat, this is one of the other alternate locations I was thinking of. And here we've got some blown down trees, and the trees are kind of, you know, closely clustered together. I think a guy could definitely make something down here. Got that huge widowmaker up there. Yeah, I'll keep this in mind. Probably what I don't necessarily like about it is it's almost in the bottom of this little draw. I kind of wonder what that'll be like if it were to rain, or if all this snow was to melt suddenly. Might flood out this shelter, but it's definitely an option. Got some rabbit tracks down here. You know, seeing all sorts of coyote tracks out here. So this would definitely be an area. Guy could come set up some snares in here for sure. There's more snare opportunity down here, I think, than you can shake a stick at. That's part of the reason why I want to get that shelter set up, is mainly to function as kind of a training base in the wintertime. That way, guy doesn't have to worry about shelter nearly as much if it's already pre-made, and you can focus on other things. But definitely like this little area over here. So I'm gonna head back to my primary location, see what that's looking like. Real quick, I just was doing a little B-roll, I guess, for the video, and looking for different areas to set up snares. And right over here, you can kind of see, here we've got Little rabbit tracks. And those are pretty fresh. Those are from today. You can see they go up in. See if I can zoom in there. They go up in under that log, and right there, be a great place for a snare. And if we just head over here, following the same trail. See the tracks come. And then same thing. They go in there. And then no doubt if we just kind of circled this big brush pile, we could probably find another rabbit run going out the other side. So definitely kind of a good place for some snaring. So that's probably another reason why maybe I won't use it for a shelter location, is I'll preserve this area. So real quick guys, I'm kind of in a spot where I can give kind of a general overview of the area and why I'm kind of wanting to put my shelter back here. You know, for one, it's secluded. There's no roads. You gotta hike in here to get to it, especially, you know, in the wintertime. You're gonna be probably hiking at a minimum, if not snowshoeing. This is gonna be very secluded, which means, you know, people aren't gonna mess with it. Sometimes, not a lot of people come back here, but you never know. The other thing too, if it's off the beaten path, the cows probably will stay away from it. There's cattle ranching up in here, but the cows, they aren't going to go trekking off into the thick brush, you know, when they can get to food and water easily. They won't have any need to do that, so that's the other reason. So kind of give a brief overview. So right about, let's see, there's this hill over here, and right about tip of my finger is the start of a pretty good sized dam. Little pond back there. So that's a good source of water, obviously. Animals for trapping other, you know, I don't know about fish, but there's definitely frogs and snakes back there. And so where I'm thinking of setting up my shelter is kind of up this draw, and just around the bend you can start to see right over here, get my finger in view here, right over here, you start to see those hilltop, or those treetops. And there's a nice little kind of alcove tucked in the side of the hill back there, kind of a small draw full of trees. And I've also seen, I'm not 100% certain on this, but it looks like there's some springs back there too. So that's my primary location, is somewhere back in there. So I'm gonna head that way now. Okay, made it just a little further. So the dam is straight down here. This is the draw I was talking about. You can kind of see how it widens out here in this area. I think that's where I'm gonna look to see if I can set up a shelter somewhere over in here. So real quick, I was headed down in that draw and saw this deer track. It's a buck. You can see the hoof and the two dew claws back here. He was headed down there probably this morning or last night, because you can kind of tell the snow's gotten kind of crusty. It's not like fine powder like what I've been kicking up here. But so apparently somebody survived hunting season for next year, hopefully. Okay guys, down in the bottom of that draw I told you, came in that way, and it's definitely getting thicker. I think I'm gonna keep following. I'm kind of just following this little trail. Definitely seeing lots of resources. Haven't quite yet seen an ideal spot. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work my way that way for a ways. If I don't see anything on this side, I'll show you kind of then I'll check the other side. And the deeper in here that I get, the more you can kind of see this, where the running water is kind of cut this trench in the bottom. And there's been a lot of times where I come back here and there's always been water back in these. So I don't know if, like I said, if there's springs or if I just kind of time it right. But that's another reason I'd kind of like to set up a shelter back here is, hopefully it's a good spot to find some water besides that pond. The guys that have been to the Fieldcraft class, that's pond number 2. And, they probably understand why I don't want to get water from there all the time. I'll do it if I have to, but if I can find something better, why not? So, yeah, I'm just going to keep going that way, see what I can find. So I worked my way in from down there, and I'm kind of up, not down in the bottom. You can see my trekking poles there. I just came about 10, 12 feet. And it's kind of this, I don't know, the hillside must have sloughed off at some point, but it's just a little shelf. It's probably 30, 40 feet long, maybe 10 to 12 feet wide. This big tree right here basically fell right across it. And the shelf kind of goes from about here over to about right over there, the base of those trees. Runs that way. Might not be a bad spot. It's kind of close to the edge though, but it is tucked down in here pretty good. So this is definitely a potential spot. I'm going to keep going a little further, then I'll double back and kind of search the other side. Here's another spot just further down. Kind of on just the back end of that shelf. It's kind of starting to flatten out into this bottom. But you can kind of see, show you what I'm looking at. So we've got this down tree right here. We've got the hillside over here. And then we've got this tree over here, this kind of crooked guy right here. And over here we've got these two. And so what I'm kind of seeing is, almost like a triangular shape coming over. So this crooked tree is kind of the point, or one corner. This would be kind of back here. Actually, that tree right there would be another corner. And then this one would be another corner. That's about a 20 feet on each side, roughly. You definitely would have to clear out some stuff, but, there's a potential there for some shelter. Okay, guys. I'm working my way down the other side of this draw. Other than that first kind of big shelf and that triangular shaped area, I didn't really see anything that I really thought would be worthwhile. Coming down the other side, it's got a pretty good slope all the way down into the bottom. And I was starting to think I might not see anything, and then I came up around this kind of bend. It kind of just, once again, kind of got a little slough in the hillside here that's flattened out. It's definitely a good, 20 by 20 area. Now, granted, it's full of trees, which isn't a bad thing because I think you could utilize those, like I said, as kind of support pillars in a lot of different ways. There's also some fairly straight, good sized ones like this that you could cut down and make a pretty heavy duty tripod with as well if you needed that structure to build onto. I do like how the back side of it is against this pretty steep hill that's full of brush. Nothing's going to really come down this hillside. No animals or people are really going to want to go through that. There is a trail that runs right in front of it. But I think if a person put the shelter back in, Didn't build it obviously right on the shelter. I don't know that it would be that big of a deal. So the nice thing is too is, you know, as I'm up here kind of looking, I've got this tree and this one. Well, that one's broke off, it's dead. I could easily cut that out. Same with this one over here, it's pretty well fallen over and probably broken off. Yep, right here, it's pretty much all rotted out, so could definitely get those out of the way fairly easily and probably clear up these other smaller ones and have, you know, basically from this tree over to those two, have a pretty well cleared out area. You know, I thought about if you had to, you could build it into the side of the hill, kind of almost as like a dugout as well. And something like this wouldn't, I don't think it'd be that much to dig out, just to kind of square up the floor and level it up. And then you've got some decent pillars kind of on your corners. I'm thinking like a rectangular shape almost, coming back into the hillside and then across the front over to that tree and then over to the hillside again. I'd like it to be tall enough. I'm not a real tall person, but if it had an interior height of 6 feet, at least part of it, that would give a person a place to stand and, you know, change clothes and get dressed and stuff. That's a nice, to me in the wintertime, I hate being cramped inside a small tent, having to lay down to put my clothes on. So, you know, this isn't necessarily meant to be the most low profile, super secret tactical hide site or anything. Really just a kind of a cool shelter to come out to and be able to train out of, so to speak. Get back in here and then stay for a couple days, practice trapping and so on. And I think this area would be large enough, you know, 3 guys plus a stove, I think would fit in here pretty easily. It'd be a little cramped. I mean, you're not going to be setting up chairs and tables, but might not be too bad. So yeah, I think of what I've seen so far, this is probably going to be my first pick. Okay guys, so I'm going to go ahead and make an executive decision, and I'm going to go ahead and use the area I just described. I'm going to set my cache here with my building supplies, and I'm going to go ahead and scout the rest of the side of this draw on the way out, but I doubt I'm going to find a spot I like more than this one. This one's kind of growing on me the more I look at it. So kind of talk about the cache real quick. All it is about a 1 gallon plastic jug. Got these at the dollar store. It's got a screw-on lid with a nice big opening. This is just construction supplies, stuff that I plan on leaving out here. So I've got about 35 or 40 feet of mule tape. Mule tape's just a flat, let's see, got about 35 or 40 feet of mule tape. And this is just to help lift logs or other stuff. You know, just kind of a good utility, heavy duty utility cordage, I guess. I've got a set of UCO matches. I've got 3 emergency Mylar space blankets because I plan on, whatever shelter design I plan on building, I plan on lining it, kind of using these as both a vapor barrier and on the inner, on the inside to reflect heat, keep it warmer. 50 feet of paracord, and I got about 50 feet of number 36 bank line, and then I've just got one of the cheap 36-hour candles, just for light and other stuff inside the shelter eventually when I get it built. But so this stuff's just going to hang out here for when I get a chance to come back out and have more time to start building. that was my original plan for the day, was to actually build on the shelter, but I didn't get out here till later than I'd hoped, and it just didn't work out that way. But at least I was able to come out and scout and find a shelter location. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put this lid on nice and tight. I'm not too worried about water getting inside because nothing inside is going to get damaged by water. So I'm not going to get all crazy with sealing it up. Let's see, and then inside here, I always carry like I said in previous videos, I always carry a drum liner. So I'm just going to put the container inside this and then wrap it up. That way, kind of does have a good waterproof barrier until I can get back out here. Okay, all I'm gonna do, quick, I'll show you what the plan is. Just gonna stick it up inside there where that tree's blown over, and then I'll take a bunch of branches and stuff and cover it up. And that should be good enough till I get back out here. Gonna do a quick walk to make sure nothing's sticking out, make it too obvious. So I think everything is pretty well covered up. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna mark one of these trees. I'm just gonna basically take my knife and blaze it. That way, if I'm coming along up this trail, you know, one thing, pretty identifiable terrain feature along this creek bottom is this big hole right over here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just blaze this tree on one on each side, from the north and from the south. Okay, there's one. I'll do another one on the other side. There. So that way, coming up this trail, and maybe I'm not seeing things the same way I am today, at least I've marked that tree. So I know when I get to that point, this is the site, and my cache should be straight over there. Looks like I got about an hour or so of daylight left, so I'm gonna go ahead and pack up my gear and start heading back. Okay guys, I'm about halfway back. So I thought before I run out of daylight, I'll just kind of wrap up this video. You know, the two objectives today were to scout that shelter location and to kind of get some time on these crampons, kind of make sure that they're going to do what I hope they will do for me. And you know, that's true of any piece of gear. If you don't get out and test it, you don't know for sure. You can't rely on Amazon reviews and YouTube videos and whatever you read in a book or saw in a movie. You got to get out and test it yourself, because there's all the fine details that you just don't even, you know, that's why I started doing videos, to capture more of those details. But until you do it yourself and come out and learn how to adjust the crampons yourself, so to speak, and get them to fit your feet, you know, if they just sit in your closet, they aren't going to do you any good when you need them. So I think as far as testing this mobility gear, the crampons, combined with the trekking poles, I mean, that's an easy win. You know, I've used trekking poles a fair amount. That's something that, you know, when you teach classes, sometimes there's a pretty healthy exchange that goes on of knowledge and experience. And that's one thing that a few students, they've come to classes with trekking poles, and trekking poles were never really something I ever used. You know, in the infantry, we carry really heavy rucks and weapons, and we don't use trekking poles. And so it never was something that I really saw much use for. But honestly, they are a great piece of gear when used, you know, at the appropriate time. I don't use trekking poles nonstop. You know, you saw during my hunting videos, these are basically there primarily for my spotting scope tripod. They also double as basically a sitting height bipod to shoot from. And then, you know, also, of course, they're there in case I need them for mobility, either because I'm carrying a heavy pack full of deer, or if this type of weather would have showed up earlier in the year, you know, I might have been using them more during hunting. And I think keeping your hands like this, not gripping it like this, but just loosely in there, it allows you to quickly remove your hand if you should need to. So I don't think they're a bad thing at all. I've read that if you get over reliant on them, your body uses different muscles depending on whether you're using trekking poles or not. So I think it's a good idea to use them when necessary, but don't use them automatically all the time. You know, even today, especially with these crampons, I don't know that I've used them all day just to kind of practice with the whole system, but I don't know. With the crampons, I think I'd be comfortable putting the trekking poles away for the most part until I get into steeper terrain, at least. I want to thank you all for watching, and have a great day.